Hi, this is Carrie with K&C Taxidermy, and we're going to do a tutorial on how to cape your deer out to bring it to the taxidermist. Now, once you've pretty much caped it out from around the ribs, this is when what I'm going to show you now is to, I guess you would call, like, de-skull it. You would take it off the head and like do your Y incision and remove the antlers. So this deer is already caped out, removed from the body, but all that's left is a little bit of the head and neck. Now, because of CWD, this is an in-state deer, but if you're coming from out of state, you're going to need to remove the head. It's going to need to be skin and antler only. So I thought it was important for, if you can't get your deer into a processor or to a taxidermist to cape your deer out to bring it to a taxidermist, then you may need to do it yourself. So I wanted to do this real quick to show you how, if you want to try to do it yourself, to remove the cape from the head of the deer. Now I've already started taking my knife and working along. See, you're going to start separating the lip from the jaw. See, so you're going to come inside and you're going to take your, notice the deer has no top teeth. You're going to inside the top of the nose. This is how it would sit on here. You're going to start taking your knife and working it around the inside of the mouth, because this skin here is what the taxidermist needs. The inside of the lip, the taxidermist needs that to turn that out to tuck it into the form. So make sure you don't cut that off. So you're going to want to come straight to the bone and start working it with your knife. Now I'm going to try to position my camera the best I can so that you can see what I'm doing. But I wanted to go ahead and get started so you can see, I can tell you what I'm doing, and you can see how I went ahead and got started with this. When you get to the nose, you're going to cut down that piece of cartilage all the way to the back till you hit bone again. And then you're going to start just follow on the bone. Try to keep as close to the bone as you can. You want to keep that septum attached. You're going to cut the septum out with the nose. And I pretty much work all the way down until I hit the tear ducts here, and then I'm going to stop, because that's a part you really don't want to mess up. This is where a lot of people mess up, is when you hit this tear duct, because you're really going to have to stay close to the bone and dig in there and make sure you get all that eye skin that's down deep. Get as close to the eye as you can, because that's another skin your taxidermist really needs for tucking. Right now I'm still working around the mouth. Always make sure to keep your knife sharp, because as close as you stay, if you keep staying really close to the bone and scraping that bone, your knife's going to keep going dull. But that's okay, because that means you're not popping holes in your cape. I like to stay as close as I can to that bone as I possibly can. Just keep peeling it down and working that skin away from the skull. Take your time. Alright, now on this side I've gotten to this tear duct. So I'm going to put my thumb or my finger here on the inside of this eye so I can feel it from this side. And I'm going to make sure I can feel it from this side. And I'm going to come in really deep. You want to really make sure you stick close to the bone here, because this is where a lot of people, and if it's your first time doing it, if you cut a hole in the tear duct, it's fine. It can be sewn back together. It's not a big deal, but you just really want to make sure you get, I'm going to get a stronger knife for this, because it's really, there's a lot of cartilage right here. And there's also that little bone that protrudes in the corner of the eye. But I get around that. I'll show you here in a second. Just take your time working around that. I'll show you here. This little bone right there is that corner. It's like cartilage. Piece of cartilage right there in that tear duct. It's like the corner of the eye. You're going to want to get around that. You see how close I've stayed? Just work around. You'll see how it starts pulling off. See that? If you're staying, and that's what you're wanting to cut along. This right here, where you can see it pulling away from the bone, that's where you're cutting. And then when you get to the corner of the eye, see, this is the eyeball right here. And this is that corner of that eye. You're going to want, this is all that skin you're going to want to keep. You can see my finger underneath. You're going to want to keep all that skin, because that's what you keep. That's what you tuck into the form. That's your eye tucking skin. So when I come in with my knife, I'm going to make sure I pull this up with my finger underneath and really get down, stick my knife way down in here. And if you pop the eyeball, that's fine. But you really want to make sure you get all that skin on the inside. And I'm going to try to show you that the best as I can. But I'm just trying to show you how, just working down the bone, and that's all the inside lip and everything that's being cut away. But your taxidermist is going to need all this to turn out to tuck into the form. So you want to make sure you come as close to the bone as you can and just start working your knife along that bone and peeling it back. Now see, I'm going to stick my finger up under here. Can you see my finger up under there? And I'm going to pull it up with my finger, and I'm going to start cutting this skin way down here. I'm going to stick the tip of my knife way down in there, and I'm going to start making an opening. Try to get as much of that eye skin as I can. You're going to start seeing the eye peekaboo out. Nope, and see, I got the eye there, but that's fine. I don't care about the eye. We don't need that. I want that skin. I want to make sure I get down deep enough to where I have, see how much skin I have? I'm going to come work back around here some more so I can release more skin from this side of the face so I can see what I'm doing better. And you can see that eyeball right there, which I don't care that I cut up that eyeball because I want to make sure I got all my skin, or as much as I can. Now I'm going to kind of work my knife around the back side as I'm pulling that skin away with my fingers here. Make sure you're not cutting, see your eye? I always keep a finger in there, usually my middle finger, as I'm cutting. See all this skin? That's that skin that I just cut loose around the eyeball. But your taxidermist is going to need all that. Don't ever think you have too much skin still attached. I always keep my finger in it to make sure that I'm not popping any holes around my eyes. I always keep a finger in there to make sure that I can pull that cape away, safely away from the skull, so I can keep. Now these open areas like this is easy because like I showed you, you can easily see where that cape is pulling away from the skull, and that's a lot easier work. You move pretty quick, and then I'm going slow because I want you guys to be able to see. Usually I make pretty quick work of this, but I'm trying to make sure, because the eyes are really important. I know when I started in the bottom jaw, where a lot of beginners pop a lot of holes because that skin's really thin right here, okay? Go as close as you can and even cut up into that tongue. I'd rather you cut up into here make your cuts, stab, pokey marks up in here rather than in here. So if you get, see here, it's a little meat from the tongue onto your cape, that's okay. I'd rather have a little bit of extra meat to scrape off rather than a bunch of holes popped to have to sew. But if I have to sew, it's okay too, little pop holes. Just make sure you try to follow the bone as close as you can. And usually you're pretty safe. All right, I'm coming back over here to this other eye. I'm gonna break this other eye loose. Now I'm sticking my middle finger in there, see? Got my finger in there in that skin. And I'm gonna start working it loose. Just remember to be mindful of your finger in there. Don't cut your finger. I always kind of hook it back towards me like this so that I don't keep it straight in there as I'm cutting. I always hook it back towards me so I'm pulling it back and keep it out of the way. And then I just start, and then kind of make sure you keep your, now this one's been in the freezer for a year or so, so it's pretty goozy. So, but make sure you keep stuff wiped away so you can see. Oh, and look, there's the cornea. Pretty cool. I popped into the eye, but there's the cornea. I don't know. I find this stuff interesting. You probably don't. Probably think it's gross. But, because I did cut into the eye. But, so anyways, but I don't need that eyeball, so it doesn't matter. All I care about is protecting that skin for mounting. So, as you can see, I've got my skin cut away. And too much is okay. But as you can see, I've worked around that eyeball, and yeah, I've destroyed that eye because I've dug in deep to make sure I got all that connective eye tissue, but it's okay. That's what we need. And I'd rather make a mess of the stuff that I don't need than of the stuff that I do need. I'm going to start peeling back here, a little more on the forehead. And now I've gotten down pretty far to where it's going to, because it's narrower up here. So I've gotten to a point where it's getting harder to push that skin down. I've gotten work back pretty far. I mean, I've stuck my knife in and gotten pretty far back along on the forehead here. So now what I'm going to start doing is make my Y incision, which I'll show you how to do that. And I'm going to go in at the base of the ears, and I'm going to start working this way, and we should be able to pop this head right out. First thing I'm going to do before I start making my V-shaped right here at the back of the burr or the antler, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to very carefully come in at the base of the burr, which is the base of the antler, the burr right here, and I'm going to start very carefully just kind of breaking that loose. I kind of poke in and kind of pry out a little bit, poke in, pry out, poke in, pry out, poke in, pry out, like that, kind of working around, just loosening up the skin from the base of that burr. You want to be careful. You want to make sure, number one, you don't cut yourself. Number two, I do this, and then I usually get a flathead screwdriver, and I'll show you, and then you can really get under there and kind of pry it away from the antler, because you want to make sure you don't cut all that hair, okay? You want to be very careful with this part, all right? So I just kind of stick it straight in, and then just kind of, just to loosen it so I can get that screwdriver in. And just start very gently. Well, not gently. I mean, you gotta, and then I'll show you here what it's gonna look like. You can see here, see where it's starting to separate? That right there is what I'm doing. I'm working around and kind of just using my knife as a sharp edge. I kind of stick it, poke it in, and just kind of pry it out to work it loose. See, I'm separating that skin from the base of that burr. And then I can take like a flathead screwdriver and stick it up under there, and then really kind of do like this and really kind of pry it loose like that. And I'll show you that in a minute. But right now I'm just kind of cutting it loose, making sure it's loose from the base of that burr. Once I've worked all the way around, now I'm going to go get that flathead screwdriver and kind of pry it a little bit. Really get it loose. I just like to use, you don't necessarily have to use the screwdriver. You can just use your knife. I like to use like a blunt force like object to kind of pull it away, because then I don't have to worry about popping holes. Just kind of get it up under there and kind of pop it up and pull it away from, and then I can get a real nice, of course, like I said, you don't necessarily have to do this. If you just want to use your knife and just cut around it, I just like to use, we were taught in school to kind of use, you know, like a screwdriver or something, like a flathead, to kind of pry it. Number one, because you don't want to cut the hair. Number two, because you want to make sure you don't pop a hole in your cape. And knives are good for doing that. So if you want something to kind of push and pull and tug but I always start by, some people just come right in with the screwdriver and just start prying. I have to, especially after just having carpal tunnel surgery, I'm still recovering. So, of course that doesn't stop me, as you can see, but, the prying and stuff, it's still kind of sore to do that. So I'm trying to minimize that soreness. That, and I'm past the point of really having to worry about popping holes in my cape. Although I've done my share, it happens. So don't. But this is kind of important because these are measurements, you know, that are going to be taken to make sure everything lines back up on the form. So, you know, if you want your deer to look like it did, you know, these holes got to line back up with these antlers. We don't want to make these holes this big, you know, giant holes, because the base of the antlers aren't that big. We want it to stay as true to this deer as possible, and it all to go back together the same way. So here you can see, you really see that skin cut away from that eye. There's no such thing as too much. It's better to have too much than not enough. May look like I'm jabbing my knife down in there, but I'm really not. I'm really being very, that's why I can have my hand on the blade and not cut myself, because I'm actually being very light-handed with it. You know, it doesn't look very safe, but I'm actually being very, see, I'm just working around and breaking that loose from the base of that burr. Making sure I get all that hair. This is probably the most time-consuming part, because I think it's one of the most, other than the eyes, I think it's one of the most important parts. You just really don't want to, this creates a lot of work for the taxidermist if you really just don't take your time and work this skin away from these burrs properly. You see that? You can see, oh, I'm separating that skin from those burrs. This is an important part, because then I'm going to come in from behind. I don't have to turn them. Now that I've got it pulled away, I'm going to show you how I'm going to come in from the back here. You'll see how, if you follow this hairline, you can see where the hair comes together here going, it's almost like a cowlick. That's the line I follow right here. I come from the back of that burr and I'm going to cut a line straight back, because this hair, this longer hair on top, is going to cover that seam really well when I go back to sew it back together. You want to try to follow the natural hairlines and seams. See how that, and then there's shorter hair here, and there's longer hair here. There's a natural line there in the hairline. You can see it if you look really close. And that's where I'm going to come, right at the base of this ear, off the back of that incision that I made to pull it away from the, and I'm going to cut my line straight back here, and then another one from that base of that burr back here, straight back here into like a V, and this is where you get your Y incision, and then you're going to come straight down the back of the neck. But for right now, I'm going to do the V, the top of the Y, I should say, the top of the Y. Let me make sure my knife is nice and sharp. It's really hard to do this so that you can see. Oh, Okay, and then when you get that, you can really see, this is going to be where your ear separates from the skull in here. But see how we're making that Y cut? You're opening it up. Alright, I've just followed that hairline down and come down to here. Alright, now I'm going to come over here to the other side and find that longer hair where it overlaps. And see, I take my knife and I kind of run it up gently along, part the hair, because I don't want to cut that hair. And I come up and find where I've separated, and then I start making my incision. Make sure you keep that hair up out of the way. And once you get, always use your knife to part that hair. I'm going to keep coming. I'm going to keep working down as to not cut go slowly on this part because I don't want to ruin this hair. Okay. I'm trying to do this so you can see it. So I'm going to keep kind of pulling this back. I'm going to keep working down. Remember, you're going to want to make as straight a line as possible because you don't want a bunch of jagged, rough edges, okay? So once I get down to here, I can go ahead and see. I can see where my knife wants to pop through, all right? And then if you want to just kind of sharpen my knife. Okay. Okay. I'm going to come down. And voila. See? So I've got that a little bit more. Still some tissue hanging on there. And then you're going to see, you can flap this back here. Now I've got the triangular part, the top part of the V, right? What I do is I start scraping the skull and going ahead and making sure all that tissue pulls away good. See there? And then these are the base of my burrs here. And now I'm already back all the way through, and that's all separated from where I already skinned up to. I'm just going to come around the sides of these a little bit more. And then what we can do, now you always see there's always a thicker down the middle. It's almost like a short mane down the middle of your buck's neck. There's like usually a darker, right here, a darker, longer tuft of hair like a mane. Now I like to follow that. I'm going to come and skin down a little bit so I can create a pocket to run my knife down. Okay? And then I like to just come down, find the center of that mane, or the tip of that, the point of your V, and this is where you're going to create that Y. I'm struggling. Might need to get a different knife. Okay. Since I can't pop it in, and just come up with that. Okay. See how you start. Making your, this is where the Y, the stem of your Y comes in, down the back of your neck, and it just kind of opens up. This one doesn't have as much neck on them as they usually do, but this is the part, this is what you can't have if you're bringing it from out of state. You can't have all the lymph nodes and stuff are all in this area, the top of the neck and the base of the skull. So this is why you have to have all this removed now to bring a deer to your taxidermist if you're bringing it from out of state. Okay? So I'm going to come in a little bit up here around the ears, because now you can see better. You're going to feel a flat piece of cartilage right here at the base of your ear. You can see it. You can see it right here. That's where you're going to want to cut to take it away, to separate it from the back of the skull back here. See? I'm just going to come in with my knife and this part, and then you'll see like this tallow right here, and then you'll see like the ear canal. See, you're going to see that piece of tallow as you're coming in. Here's that piece of cartilage I was talking about, that flap of cartilage. You want to go in back behind that. You're going to have this like strip of tallow, fat, and then there's your ear canal down here. And you're going to cut through that to release the ear from the skull, okay? You do not want to cut this ear base, this bulby part back here. You don't want to cut that. If you cut that, it's really hard to fix. It takes a lot of clay and a lot of work to fix that. You've cut it too short. So you really want to come all the way back behind this flap of cartilage, find that, and you want to come back behind that, and then come down. And I'm just going to keep separating, see, that my skin from the muscle. In the neck, it's all muscle. Okay, and I've already pretty much come all the way up around here, so I'm just going to keep working around what's left of this neck, around that muscle, in that neck, and this guy is getting ready to break loose, and I'm getting ready, he's getting ready to end up in my lap. Just got him setting up on this container, trying to raise it up so you can see it on the camera. Now, let's see if we can get him. Oh, we still got to do this side. I still got attached over here. I was going to see if I could start pulling him off of that skull. But Still got some attached over here. It's really not as hard as it seems. It's just a matter of really paying attention to what's underneath the anatomy. You can see the natural part where that skin wants to come away from that muscle, and that's all you're you're following this with your knife and just kind of scoring it. You're not doing any real cut. See, I'm just kind of scoring it with my knife. I don't want to pop any hole. I'm not cutting, like doing any hard cuts. I mean, I know it seems like, but it's worth it in the end if you just take your time and look and see. Make sure you're keeping a good eye on what you're doing, because this is your trophy we're talking about. You want it to look good and not having a bunch of sew jobs. So the only thing I'm going to have to sew on this guy will be his Y incision in the back. And that's just because we can't, you can't put it on the form. You can't put the hide on with the antlers on. So you have to make that opening to be able to put the hide on the form and then attach the antlers, because you can't get it on with. Okay? So I'm getting ready to start. And then once you get it off like this, get ready to pop this fella off. Okay? Then I've got just a few little things holding on here. Usually at the corners of the mouth, there's a lot of extra. I need to sharpen my knife again. Like I said, my knife goes dull quick because I'm really scraping the bone, okay? But I'd rather... Okay. Here we have his loose in the front. Now all I've got to do is separate, because I don't want all that neck meat in the back. And I go ahead and take all the time I need to take that meat off, because it's less I have to clean up. I don't know if you can see that. There's still a lot of neck meat left on there. And my cape's falling off the table. Just pulling it down. It starts getting a little... But as you can see, I've just about got this guy loose. I'm just working on getting this last little bit of meat loose, because I want to make sure I don't have any. I don't even want any meat left on this cape. Which I may just go ahead and cut off, because so I can show you. It's getting awkward to handle. Okay, so I've got my skull loose. All right, my head is loose. My cape is, and now this is what you can bring safely to your taxidermist. Okay, this right here. Put it in a bag, put it in the freezer, whatever. This is only the skin, the cape. There's his mouth. There's his eyes. And here's the back where we made the Y incision to get the antlers and the neck out. You see the ears. Alright guys, now this is the important part. We're going to crown out these antlers. Now what I do is I take my Sawzall, or you can take a handsaw, but what I'm going to do is I come about right here. What you can do is come about halfway between the eye sockets and I come straight down. Or you can come a little bit right behind. I still catch the back end of these eye sockets, and I'm going to come straight down on this cut. Okay, see how I've gotten through till I'm about below the eye socket? Alright, so I've opened up that. Now what I'm going to come do is from back here at the back of the skull, I'm going to come and cut straight across to this cut, okay? Let me turn this the other way. Be easier for me to get a hold on. And sometimes I like to turn it up like this, and then I'm going to come straight down. Okay, see how that's come loose? I know it takes me a little, it seems like it's taken me a long time to cut through this. Remember, I just had surgery, so I can't push it as hard as I normally would. That eye tissue and tallow and stuff likes to hold on. Alright, see? Now I got that crown out, that skull. Now there's going to be brain still in there. See that? Just take your finger and scoop that out. Boop. Pops right out. Now you got a hollow skull. This is what you bring to the taxidermist. You still got some, you might have some eye tissue in there. Just make sure you clean all that stuff out, that fat behind the eye and all that. I usually just take my knife, come in, clean all that tallow out. Okay? You can clean it up a little bit. And if it's going to be a little bit before you can get it to your taxidermist, just put some borax on it or something like that. Some drying borax is the best. And it'll keep the smell and whatnot down. Let's see here, I'm trying to get this meat off here. Try to get as much of that meat and stuff off as you can. All that stuff. There's going to be a big chunk here on the side of your skull. You're going to want to get that off. Alright, but the brain tissue, most important thing, is that brain tissue is out. Now, it creates I like to get as much as that meat off as you can, because that creates, once that starts drying on there, that creates a lot of work for your taxidermist. Okay? That, and they really don't want any of that brain to just clean it up as best as you can. Okay? Alright, like that. Sprinkle some borax on there, and you are ready for the taxidermist. Easy peasy. Thanks guys for watching, and I hope this helps get your trophy deer to your taxidermist if your taxidermist is out of state. Thanks you guys, and remember to like and subscribe to our page at K&C Taxidermy on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you for watching us here at K&C Taxidermy. Remember to like and subscribe us here on YouTube, and join us next time for our latest creation, and we'll see you then.